You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? It's great to see you again on another episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. I am Dr. Sheri Fluellen. We are here with two of our amazing co-hosts, Faisal and Ensaun, and Daniel Fernandes. Daniel isn't always with us, but he is rocking the house today, and we're excited at his addition and his input in the topic and conversation today. In the Coaching Mastery community, which is the community that all three of us are a part of and is also the sponsor for this podcast, we do a monthly masterclass to really unpack a few of the critical areas that coaches typically need to grow in order to have a successful and sustainable, financially viable business. So we just finished up last week, right? No, it was this week. It was just a couple days ago. Monday. As of this recording, It was Monday, literally 2 days ago. A lot has happened in 2 days. We did a masterclass around delivery. And very specifically as a coach, the most important delivery initially is delivering our strategy session or discovery session or your sales call, your intro call, whatever you call it. That's so critically important because that sets the stage for having the opportunity then to be able to actually coach a person kind of through their pain points, through their issues. So we are going to kind of unpack a little bit today, that strategy session and kind of talk about what we've seen, what we've experienced, what works, what doesn't. So you will be able to walk away from having listened to this podcast episode with a fresh perspective on what you can do differently to make your strategy session amazing. So I'm excited for this conversation. Who wants to jump in first?
Can I just clarify one part here? I'm excited to go into this conversation because I think if there's anything that will help coaches move faster is refining this session. And I want to clarify what this session is because coaches call it different things. I know Sheri clarified it a little bit. So it's not, because you mentioned intro call, it's not the 20-minute or 10-minute or 15-minute triage call or intro call or connection call that you would have. This is the full session that you do with your potential client to give them the experience of your coaching. So the experience of the coaching process. This could be 45 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. So it's a longer call. And that's what we're addressing here. And that's the masterclass that we did. We walked our coaches through a framework that they can use to do this call a little bit better. So you might call it a consult call, discovery call, strategy session, or sales call, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, but that's the longer session. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no, perfect. It's like when you go to Baskin Robbins and you see all of the amazing flavors and they're like, I want to try that one and that one because they know that if you try it, you're going to see how amazing it is. And you're going to want the whole big full, like four scoop ice cream cone. So that's what the strategy session is. You're giving them a taste of what they're actually going to get if they kind of do the whole package.
I love that. And by the way, I'll just make a distinction here. I was talking to a person who's becoming a coach a couple of days ago, and they actually said they only did a 30-minute call and that person was pretty much ready to move forward and they wanted to buy it right away. And so it's like, well, actually, it's a good reminder for us that the process that you use doesn't have to be the same process as somebody else uses. And so if you do a 30-minute call and they buy, then that's okay. If you do a 30-minute call and then you have a deeper coaching conversation after which they buy, there's lots of different ways you can do this. So we're talking specifically about where you've had a connection call and now we're in the longer discovery call, that particular model today.
Yeah. So we're going to address the piece that Daniel just talked about because it's important to address that because there are different models of coaching. They're different and it will depend a lot on what your approach is for coaching. But what we're talking about is what generally works better. And we can kind of dissect a little bit what that call might be and why somebody would want to sign up. And it also depends on the price of your package. It depends on the number of sessions. So you could offer somebody one other session or 2 or 3 other sessions, not a bigger package. that might be a very different story than what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a high ticket offer. And of course, that's relative to your experience where you are. For us to offer a high ticket offer, that's why we're going through a couple of sessions for us to do this. Okay, so maybe we can start this off with sharing what we heard on the masterclass from the coaches, what struggles they had, what were they trying to learn, and what were they trying to do to help them move forward. Where are they generally, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, Faisal, you did an amazing job of that class, of leading it and putting it together and really engaging the discussion. I think a lot of people came to that class specifically to find out more about how to run these discovery calls. I'm just going to use the word discovery call. And if anybody wants to hear the recording, you can get the recording as well. But that was a great call because I think a lot of people shared the different things that they were talking about. A couple of questions were pretty insightful to me. Like towards the end, we had a question on like, hey, if can you be absolutely sure that if I do these steps, it's going to work for me? And I think the thing that like, that's where people in mindset are, is like, I want to have a guarantee that this is going to work for me. And the challenge I think you addressed, Faisal, was that, yeah, well, it depends on what is right for you, right? Like not everybody needs to market the same way. Not everybody has the same program. Not everybody has the same clients. Not everybody has the same approaches. And so what works for you might be slightly different than what works from somebody else, but the general process of the strategy session is it's a good chameleon for including in your particular process. But there's a lot of pieces of that. I think people weren't aware of the pieces that go into leading into get to that discovery session, as an example. That's something I heard.
Yeah, I totally love that and really resonated with me as well. I certainly have gotten into the mindset before of like, just tell me what to do, give me the 5-step process, the exact framework, the exact words and verbiage to get the specific outcome. But especially in coaching, my experience is that that's not necessarily the case. Becoming a good coach, kind of looking at it, it's not like a puzzle where there's the exact puzzle pieces with the exact defined lines and edges. It's more maybe like a watercolor painting where, if you're going to do a landscape, well, there's some things that probably need to be in it. There's the sky, there's maybe some greenery and some ground covering. So there's some certain things that need to be in there, but how it actually comes together and exactly what it looks like is going to be different based on different things. Every ideal audience or ideal client is going to be different. What works, if you're working with moms, that's going to be very different. Outreach and strategy session, potentially some of the nuances of it than if you're working with male CEOs. So yeah, I think that idea that there's one cookie cutter way of doing it can get us stuck. And then we think we're wrong or that what we're doing isn't working. Like I suck as a coach, rather than understanding that the process around what we're doing maybe needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I love that. And also we live in the, like, I'll talk a little bit about the greater culture that we're used to 5-step processes or 6. This is why these videos are on like 5 ways to do this, 6 ways to do this, 10 ways. They tend to get a lot more clicks is because people are looking for shortcuts. So, but I mean, think about it from a life experience point of view. And I want people to consider this. Have you done anything worth doing? Anything that brings you a deeper level of fulfillment, of connection, of something that you look forward to? That could be your family. That could be a job. That could be a business. That could be your faith, whatever you're connected to. That has not taken a lot of time, effort, consistency, a lot of work, experimentation for you to figure out what that is for you. And if you've lived a few years, you know that shortcuts are usually not a good idea. Now, there are ways to accelerate the process. We believe that. But whenever we try to shortcut the things that you need to do to grow, that's when things break down. So I'll give you some specific examples in business. So actually, I like referencing this from Gary Vee. And also Alex Hormozi. They both said it in different ways. So Gary Vee says this. So he was talking about if he was connecting with a client and they wanted to hire his marketing agency to promote their product, to market it for them. He's looking at the product. He's like, I'll tell you one thing. We're really good at this. We're going to make your product like go out there and it'll be in front of a lot of people. But that's not really a good thing because your product is shit. because if we do this and we promote it, it's going to hurt your company. What my recommendation is for you to work on your product, not promoting it at this scale. And then we can help you do that. He didn't mean that in a negative way, but he really meant that as like, you need to improve on the product, the thing there. And in our case, and for coaches, it is our skill sets. If that thing does not work, you can keep promoting yourself all day long. Everything else breaks down. And that's a path of mastery. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of experimentation to build it. We will share frameworks with you, but ultimately you take that and experiment with it and see how it functions within your business.
Yeah. What it reminded me of as you were talking, Faisal, is, you can have like a short-term success, but if you're not developing yourself and really understanding how to do it on a deep level, it's not going to last. And so it reminds me of when I was doing my work as a psychologist, I would do evaluations for gastric bypass surgery. And so the clients would come and I would have to run them through an evaluation around, and basically it was a judgment around how successful are they going to be long-term. And the physicians, the surgeons want this to happen because they know that if somebody is coming to get surgery to lose weight as a quick fix, it's not going to last. They actually have to have behavioral changes that support sustaining the weight loss. And they also look at the relationships and the environment around them. Is that set up to foster long-term success as well? So there's all of these different layers that need to be in place, or at least be working on developing in order for that long-term success. So imagine that you run an ad. Let's say you're like, I'm going to dump some money into Facebook ads as a coach to try to generate more leads. And you do that, but your strategy session is completely ineffective or, pretty ineffective because you haven't worked on honing it. You just wasted a lot of money and you're not really any better off for it because you're struggling converting those clients. So I think in so many ways, getting the strategy session down is really important for that long-term success.
I love that, Sheri. And it kind of goes to the other thing I think was touched on in our masterclass, which is a lot of coaches, they want to coach. They really want to coach. They love the point of serving as a coach. They love the impact that it makes. They love the ripple effect. They love seeing the changes in other people. And one of the challenges is if they're so focused on that, they don't want to quote, they don't want to be selling and they don't want to do the part that is the selling. But one of the things that you're really saying, Sheri, ultimately is like how important that strategy session is. How important is the sales process in that process? Because if you really want to serve, you're not just going to wake up one day and be serving 5 clients. You're going to have to take them through a process so that they agree to go into the coaching journey with you. And that means you're going to have to sell them. And why are you selling them? It's not for yourself. It's so you can serve them. It's so that you can actually take them on that journey that they need to go through, because what they've done so far has not been working, and what they need is that support. And so if they're coming to you, it's because they need something. So if you can help them in that journey, you got to go through that sales process. And that sales process, fortunately, is actually just a coaching process, because part of coaching is you discovering what is real for them, what is true for them, not trying to get them into your funnel and into your pocketbook. It's actually about serving. It's about making a difference for them. And part of the way you make a difference really sustainably is not coming to quick judgments about what the answers are. It's about finding out the context for that person. What are their real struggles? What are their real goals? Not like, oh, I need to take you to this and this and this so that you sign the thing and then go to my program in this way. It's actually not about that. And so the idea of doing a sales session, that's why I don't like calling it a sales session, because sometimes coaches think, oh, sales, I don't want to do that. But actually call it a discovery session. You're here to discover how you can best serve this person. And sometimes it's coaching. In that case, you can offer them your program. And sometimes it's not, and that's okay too. So knowing how to do this really well is super, super important, because it's the gateway to you actually serving.
Yeah, that's great perspective.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to also address, and this is one of the things that I talk to coaches a lot about. And unfortunately, coaches get pulled into all sorts of weird programs that kind of promise them to, hey, you're going to make 6 figures in 3 months. You're going to make 7 figures in a year, or whatever that is. And the reason was why those promises don't work is because they're only looking at the business aspects of it. Like, this is a marketing thing. Like, you're enticing people to come into something that might or might not be true. And the way they can move around it is that, oh, well, we didn't promise that. And like, I think there's a term for it. It's weasel marketing or something like that. There's that that you can move it, that weasel ads or weasel marketing, something that you can say something, but it's vague enough for you to move around that if you ever get sued.
Oh, interesting. Leaving some room for loopholes.
And they leave enough room for loopholes for that to happen. And so coaches will go into these programs. They're either a marketing program or it's run by business coaches. And it's not that they don't teach anything of value. Yes, they will teach you how business functions. They will teach you prospecting, but they don't understand the coaching world. They don't understand the skill set of coaching. They don't understand the actual product very well. And they assume that it's like any other product. The problem is that nobody knows what the hell coaching is. And everybody has their own conception of coaching. And even if they've gone through coaching with somebody else, more than likely that coach has done their version of coaching. And it's very common in the coaching world, because coaching world, it's not regulated. People will approach their own ways of how coaching works. We're figuring out what that looks like ourselves. And we're not saying like this is the only way to coach, but we're trying to build a community where we can get more data around that, because nobody knows what the hell it is. Every influencer, leader, coach is teaching it in different ways. To add to that complexity, there are different models for coaching too. And to add more to that complexity is that now that you're adding business complexity to it, to how do you get people to do this? So a lot of these marketers and business coaches don't know what to do with coaches, because then they don't understand it. And then the second set of people that you get is these marketers who have been coaches, but a while ago. Now they're at a 8-9 figure businesses, they're running bigger agencies, and they pretty much just teach you what they did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Does not work. It's a different world. Coaches deal with different challenges, a different economy. And some of them might even allude to the fact that you need to get practice. You need to make sure your skill sets are good, but they don't stress on it enough, because they can't create a simple program that they can sell. And unfortunately, they're in a place where they need to sell many units of that program. So they need to create something that's repeatable back end. So they will put you in a big training section. They'll give you a course, might or might not help you. Now, I'm not saying this because they mean harm. They will help you to some degree, but it will not help you to build a sustainable business as fast as you think it will. So I just wanted to address those things.
Faisal, are you saying that because it's really hard to teach coaching skills and create that environment where people are really up-leveling their coaching skills?
But I'm saying that on both sides, the coaching skill set and the business skill. And this is why in Coaching Master Community, one of the things that we've learned is that you need to get feedback on the skill sides of things, of how are you delivering your sessions, whether that's your sales sessions or your sessions in general, and how are you approaching? Because if you're a coach, you've learned it from one influencer, you've gone through a training, you have a way of approaching things. Now, if nobody else is checking in with that, you're just going to keep doing whatever you were doing and might or might not work. You don't have any other feedback, and you don't know what other coaches in the industry are doing. So you're not picking up different approaches, different tools, different ways of experimenting with that. And one of the reasons why I've grown faster is because I've learned so much from other coaches, and I've experimented with those tools and I've worked on them, and I continue to develop that. And then on the business side, it's even more complex. And if find out any successful business owner, and they will tell you very clearly they're part of multiple masterminds. They are part of groups of other business owners who run businesses. They talk to other business owners, especially in the economy we're in. If they don't, they will go out of business because there are too many things happening too fast. They don't know how they will run their business. They understand that very well. That's a very common practice in business, especially in the last 10, 20 years.
Faisal, how many groups are you part of?
Multiple groups. Well, I'm part of Daniel's group. I have a business coach and I'm part of that group. I have another mastermind that I'm a part of, and I have my own masterminds. So I have 4 or 5 masterminds that I'm a part of. I go to regular events. I'm connected to other business owners. I talk to individual business owners who are successful on a consistent basis. And I give them feedback. They give me feedback on what things are going. This is how I kind of stay on track. Otherwise, there are too many things happening in the coaching world. In the business world, there are too many things. So that's why our thing we've come up with is that you need to have discussions with other business owners and other coaches, and preferably coaches who are business owners or coaches who are at least trying to build a business.
Yeah.
And
Daniel,
this is, can't stress that enough.
What groups or and feedback loops do you have in your life?
A number of them. I have my own business coach, and there's a group there as well. And I'm surrounded by, a few marketing, like there's marketing and business coaching groups within that group. I'm also running. One of the things I love about groups is that when I run them, I can build a group that I want and need, which, for example, Coaching Mastery Communities is a big group that I love. And, I also run Group Coach Magic, which is about group coaching. But being part of that group has been really good for me personally, even as a leader, because I am learning along with people, right? Like, because we're pushing ourselves to the next level, because we're not only teaching it, but we're creating an environment where people want to help each other and learn, both in the Coaching Mastery community, but also in that community. And so I kind of like being part of leading the groups too. And if you take a leadership role in a group, you actually get a higher return on your involvement in that group, whether that's paid or whether it's non-paid. Anytime you step up to take a leadership role, and I would encourage people to take leadership roles in the communities that they're part of, if only to enhance their own learning. And I have a number of other groups as well, but I think it's really important to be in groups where you can get that cross-pollination.
Yeah, I love that. And you, just to extract one thing I heard you talk about, which I would just make explicit, is when we're part of groups, one of the values that I think is important, and I think you do too, Daniel, from what you said, is the humility around the leaders. Whoever the leaders are they the kind of leader that, and if you're in other groups and you're listening to this, are they the kind of leader that I'm like, I'm an expert, I know it all, follow me, like do what I do? Or are they saying, yeah, I know a lot of things, I might be considered an expert, but I'm still growing and I'm still learning, and it's a two-way influential relationship rather than them, influencing everybody else, but they remain untouchable, which we hear in some organizations that is the dynamic, and I don't think that's healthy. So just something to think about.
Yeah, so we actually have one of our team members. He's helping us with our outreach process and I literally got off the call this morning with him. One of the first things that I asked him, he was in our masterclass. How did the masterclass go? Can you give me some feedback as to what we could improve? He had a lot to share and very valuable. And he listens to my sales calls. Now he works for us, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn from him. My business is doing much better than his business, but that does not mean I can't learn from him. And I love what Daniel said. Part of the reason why I've learned a lot about business is because I work with business owners and I'm in their events a lot. And I'm always asking them questions about what they have done, what they haven't, what has worked. I'm learning a lot from their mistakes of what they've done in business. I'm like, oh, that does not work. Let me think about my approach, because I was thinking the same thing and they've just spent the last 10 years trying to make that work. I don't think that's workable in the way that I'm thinking. So so even my business coach, for example, my business coach, he's involved in multiple other masterminds and he's gotten me connected to other people that are in that world, but he's also bringing perspective from other places that he's involved in. This is what people at 50 million, 100 million are doing differently than us. This is how they think about things, their mindset, but this is their approach. So if you're not involved and you're sitting behind your desk and trying to figure out how you can find your next prospect, and the only person you have to talk to is one other coach or three other coaches from your certification who haven't actually gone towards building their own business, you have a problem. And the problem is that they don't even know what kind of feedback to give you on the business side. And they've only worked with a handful of people. So they don't have enough of an experience to give you feedback on the skill set side of things as well. I want to give a specific example around this. So I actually was listening to a coaching call that I was giving feedback to another, and now this coach is fairly experienced, over 5 years. And when I listened to the call, I got to the end of it. I had my notes, but I needed to clarify a few things before I gave him feedback. And I asked him, and one of the first questions I asked him, like, how would you rate this call? How do you feel the call went? How would you rate this call yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And he rated himself about 8 or 9. And And I asked him a few other clarification questions around it so I can give better feedback around it. And then I told him directly, I'm like, I wouldn't rate this call more than 4. And I didn't do that from a harsh or mean perspective, but I was looking at it from a client's point of view. There's no way that person would sign up for a high ticket program based on the way that you approach this session. I'm not saying that coach is a bad coach, but I'm pretty sure he has not gotten feedback that he needed in these calls for the past 5 years. And this is a coach who's been in the coaching world for 5 years, who's coached quite a few people.
Yeah.
And now imagine how many clients he has coached with that same approach. And in his mind, he's at an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, when I've done strategy sessions and gotten feedback, it's interesting because I will, let's say that there were 20 meaningful moments or highlights during that session. I will focus on the 6, maybe that I'm I rocked it, it was amazing. And so based on those 6, I'm rating the whole thing as amazing because it's, maybe it's my psyche, it's easier to focus on the positive than the negative, whatever. But I'm missing then the other 14 things that maybe didn't go well. And maybe those 14 things that didn't go well that I wasn't even aware of or didn't pay attention to, maybe those are the things that tanked the whole thing, that detracted from the awesomeness of the 6. So I do think it's really important to get that feedback, because once I get the feedback on those other 14 things, then if I listen to my own strategy session next time, I'm now aware of those 14 things to better self-evaluate. Because there's those 2 levels. There's evaluating ourselves and getting feedback from other people. But our self-evaluation, it's hard to improve on that without getting that external evaluation to help level up our self-evaluation.
I want to elaborate on something you just said, Sheri, because it reminded me that we should remind people that are listening here. If you have not had anybody review your discovery sessions, you might be thinking, how am I going to do that? I had just had one. How am I going to get that feedback? There's different levels of this. As Sheri said, number 1 is after your session is done, the easiest way to do this is just journal. Take a moment after your session, take 15 minutes and say okay, what just happened? What did I do well? What could I improve? What did the other person experience? You can just ask yourself simple questions, just debrief yourself for 10, 15 minutes. That is the bare minimum you can do to improve. So if you're not doing that today, just start doing that. Second level is have somebody else listen to your call. The second level is actually you go back and listen to your own call, right? These are things you can do without anybody's help, right? So either journal or go back and listen to your call. People don't do it because it takes time, but if you do it soon after the call, you already have it fresh in your mind. You can maybe listen to it a little bit faster, but I would encourage you to listen to the whole call at the normal speed so you can hear the experience of the other person. Because if you think about it, how much time are you investing in getting that data and that feedback from yourself? If your call was 2 hours, you're only spending 2 hours, and there's a wealth of information. Because I'm a musician. And so when I perform on stage, I love recording it so that later when I watch it, I can be oh, there's that moment there that I could have done better at keeping the audience engaged, or that I forgot that part that I really think is important in this song. So you can improve the way that you are doing these calls by just watching yourself with that critical eye of improvement, not in a way to beat yourself up, but in a way oh, that's the thing I could have done. That's the thing I missed. I'm going to do that next time. And when that moment comes, because you watched yourself do it, you're not going to forget in the moment later. And the more you do that, the easier it gets. So that's the self evaluation. You can do a journal, or you can watch your session and take notes.
And Daniel, before you get to the third, I just kind of wanted to add a perspective on that, especially for newer coaches. We get so caught up in our mind and what we're going to be saying and what we're saying and how we're delivering that it is so easy to completely miss some of the cues that our clients are giving us, facial expressions, or maybe even the tonation of what they say. And so if you're a newer coach, that's why, especially, I think it's critical for you to go back and listen, because then you're not in your own head anymore. When you're listening to it, you're actually able to hear, what did I say? Because I don't know about you, I get this experience when I'm on stage a lot, when I'm speaking, or when I'm in a podcast. I say things that I don't know where it came from. I was wow, that was good. But then I don't remember what I said. Afterwards, I was in this funk or phase, not a bad funk, but I was in this a zone is better to say it. And after I get off, I'm sometimes I don't really remember what I said. And I go back and listen to the podcast. I was wow, that was good. But sometimes also there are times where I'm like, ooh, what was I thinking? But I don't remember because I was so focused and just, for all of these reasons, I do think it's so important to go back and listen to our own things, because you will realize that you said and did or missed things that you had no awareness happened.
Yeah, I love that, Sheri. That's the one of the powers of watching yourself as an external observer, right? Like when you're in the moment, you're in the flow and you're not thinking like what a recorded viewer would think about what you're doing, because you're trying to be present with your client, right? And so when you go back and watch that, you get that external perspective that you wouldn't be able to get the same way in the session. So those are like two very powerful ways to get feedback. Now, beyond that, you can also get somebody else's feedback because they're going to think of things that you wouldn't even see. And so having somebody to do that with is pretty powerful. One of the things we do in Coaching Master Community on that level is actually we have a coaching chain. And so you coach somebody and they tell you, how did that go after that, at the end of it, right? They tell you their experience of it. So you actually hear that feedback directly. And they're not just a client in your ideal client world. They're actually a coach, right? They're thinking about it from a coaching perspective, not like a client. Oh, that was great. Yeah. They don't know as a coach, you could have paused there better, or you could have, what you really did here was really effective. You need to hear those things as a coach from another coach. So having that opportunity to feedback right after the session is something we do in our coaching chain. It's like you run your session and you do what we call a coaching mastery discussion, where you actually get the chance to talk about that. And at the beginning of your sessions, you can run a discovery session if you want to. You can say like, hey, we're going to run this as a discovery session. Love to hear your feedback on that too. And then you run the session and you get that feedback immediately. And you can do whatever you need to do as a coach, and you can experiment. So that's one of the things I love about the coaching chain, is because you actually get that third level of feedback from an external person. And it's actually not necessarily a recording you send them. It's actually, they just had the session with you. So it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. And also another level of feedback beyond that is actually send that recording to somebody and get them to listen to it, because that will be a different type of feedback than somebody going into this session. That will be very helpful. And anybody, even if it's a peer, it's good, but especially if you know any experienced coaches, let them listen to it, because they will notice things that you're not noticing, and it will take you probably another 100 other sessions to notice it, but they could pick up on that very fast. And you might, and this is where you can accelerate your journey. You will be able to quickly improve on them within 10 sessions versus 100 sessions. And this is why I love getting it. And it's incredibly uncomfortable to do that, is to just send your recording to somebody else they're about to give you feedback and tell you. It's actually, I would say, it's easier to give feedback than do the thing. It's actually very hard to coach compared, like when I'm giving feedback, that's a much easier thing for me to do is when I'm actually doing the work on that. And so I try to keep that in mind and try to understand that this coach has like he was working through the process. But definitely do that. And also another form of feedback that we also do in Coaching Master Community, and we broadcast that session live in our group for free. So if you're not part of our group, join that. And that's what are coaches trying when it comes to different principles of coaching? What kind of questions are they asking? How are they challenging other clients? Because if you just know one way and you came from one way of training, I bet you don't understand that there are different ways of doing the same thing or different approaches to coaching. I was blown away with how many different approaches, and every day I run into coaches who use different ways of approaching coaching. And then what I mean by that is they find different ways of getting clients to open up, different ways of challenging clients, different ways of going deeper with clients, different ways of unlocking areas that they didn't know how to do before, with so many different tools. And to this day, after 7-8 years, I haven't run out of those tools. In fact, I feel like my tool set is too small now. The more I've learned, there are too many things to learn in this process. And that's generally what you learn. So this is why being part of a mastermind, knowing what coaches are trying. And I want to add a key piece in there is that these coaches would need to be involved in coaching other people other than those they're practicing with. I spent the first 2 years of my coaching work getting feedback from people who were just kind of practicing. They weren't actually working with clients, they were working with other coaches and getting feedback. But one of the things we've tried to do is get coaches to go out of their comfort zone and actually work with clients. That gives you a different kind of data than if you were working with another coach. And that's very important. Most coaches don't have access to that because they are kind of getting feedback from people that came from their certification or they're from own world. And coaches who are doing very well, they're too busy to give you feedback or do those kind of practice sessions with you. So that's why we've created a community for you to come in. And we didn't touch on the specific parts of the framework because we did the masterclass and we covered a lot of that in the last podcast as well. So definitely listen to the last podcast. And if you want access to the masterclass, if you're in our group, just type masterclass below and you just type #masterclass. If you're listening to this at some point on the podcast channels or YouTube or anywhere, you can reach out to us on that channel, or you can send us a message on support@coachingmasterycommunity.com, or you can probably join the link to our group there. If you join the link to our group, we'd be happy to share the recording with you. We don't charge anything for these master classes. You will get it as a bonus. But the one thing I want to share is that the master classes we do are things that we're trying ourselves. They're not random things that we're teaching you, or things we're experimenting with implementing it ourselves. And one last thing I want to mention, and this came from our masterclass, and I did a little bit of assessment in the beginning. How many clients have you had? And I would say a great majority of the coaches, 60-70%, didn't have any clients. And then a few of them have been working for a couple of years, so they had a few clients in there. To me, that tells me that you haven't done enough sessions. And this is a challenge I'll leave you with, and I always leave coaches with, is that make it a goal to do your first 100 sessions. I don't care if they're paid or not paid. Make it a goal to have 100 sessions with actual people who are seeking support.
You're talking about discovery sessions, right, Faisal?
Discovery sessions, 100 discovery sessions. Because what you will find is first of all, you will find a lot of your strengths within that, especially as you do the feedback, as Daniel laid it out, different levels of feedback. As you do that, you will find your strengths. You'll find out that there are a lot of areas that you don't know what to do. And to this day, I struggle with those areas with some clients. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know how to approach it. But then I know somebody to go back to is like, how do I do this? Because I was struggling in this area. So you will find areas of strength. You will find areas that you don't know what to do. You will find areas of business that now you're struggling with offering your program. You realize that you don't know how to share the offer within that session. You don't know how to navigate some of the areas that they're talking about. You notice that there are some areas that didn't land at all. You notice that other areas surprised you. If you don't have enough data around that, there's no way you can build that business. That's why we say is that experiment with it, do first 100 sessions. And if you did 10 or 15 sessions and you didn't get any clients, reach out to us. I'd be happy to go through a session and see, because more than likely there's something off about your strategy session. If you've done 10, 15 sessions, you don't have any clients, there's something off about your discovery call. It's not because your clients will not sign up with you because of other reasons.
But if you do 100 sessions, you're going to get better at it every single time. Even if you don't, like level 0 feedback is just repeat, do another one, right? Like you will get better. And by the 100th session, you're going to know what you need to improve and what's working and what's not working to a certain level that you would never know otherwise. And I would also challenge people if you're in that 100 session process, I'm going to challenge you with any session. This is my one tip. Maybe everyone can share one tip before we go here, which is really engage emotions. Get them to feel the things that we're discovering together in that session. Like deeply feel it. Like slow it down and make sure they face the things that they don't want to face and feel it and feel why it's important. Feel why it hurts so much with that particular struggle. You know, why is that thing they want to achieve? What's really the deal there? Is it, how important is it to them? And what happens if they get that? You know, all those things that they can feel in that session. That's really my tip and challenge to you for your discovery session.
No, that's awesome. So my tip is, as Faisal was talking, it reminded me of when I did supervision in the mental health field as a psychologist. I had probably over 8 years, dozens of master's level therapists that I was a supervisor for. We would meet on a weekly basis. We would talk about transference, countertransference, all the psychological terms and all this sort of stuff. And it is just a staple in understanding that is just part of the journey. And, you know, and if they weren't my employees, they would pay $5,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 a year for that ongoing supervision. And so it just hit me when you were talking, Faisal. I'm like, well, that is like a normal expected part of that world, which is not largely different than the coaching world. We're still doing very similar things. We're working with clients, trying to lead outcomes, all of that sort of stuff. And yet that idea of paying for that support, that supervision, that whether it's peer or whether it's somebody that's further along with you, that is not been established yet as a critical and necessary part of the journey, but kind of should be. So that's my
professional development.
Yes, that's my tip. That is literally what it is, professional development. So my tip is, if you are not engaged in a professional development relationship in any way, or in a way that's not serving you, figure it out and find one, because I think that is really what's going to level you up. And the Coaching Mastery community just so happens to be, in our opinion, the most bang for your buck. You're going to get so much for really so little that you're investing into yourself. It's really quite astounding. So if that's something that you're interested in pursuing, go to coachingmasterycommunity.com and you can schedule a call with one of us, and we'll walk you through, we'll help you kind of see where things are at right now in your coaching journey, and we'll kind of walk you through what support we might have if it ends up being a good fit for you. So that's my tip.
Yeah. I really love that. And if once you start to look at this as a long-term career, you will start to put in the effort, time. Don't look at it for 1 year, 2 years. Imagine 10 years out. Look at it when you have actually built a successful career, you've built a profitable career, you're serving a lot of people, you're coaching a lot of people on that path. And that is possible. And we're trying to model that for you as well as we're walking you through it, because we're trying all these things that we're giving you. And we have coaches at different levels of development here. So you're not only going to get feedback from your peers, but you're going to get feedback from coaches that are way ahead of you. And if you're sitting there like, how the hell am I going to find 100 people? Then reach out to us. We have done masterclasses on marketing and sales that are aligned with our message, what we're doing, and we'd be happy to share that for free. We've also talked about this on our podcast, so listen to the other podcast episodes. It will serve you a lot. All I can say is look at this as a long-term journey. Don't look at it as a sprint. You will get your clients. You will make money in this business, just not tomorrow or next month. You need to put in the work. You need to put in the time and effort, and you need to get feedback. You need to be connected to the business world, in the coaching world, and you need to be connected with other coaches who are actually doing this. Wherever you find that, great. We would love to invite you into our community to do this, because we feel like we actually have service-oriented coaches who are actually doing this out in the world. And we know that we can support you. So reach out to us, connect with us, look for the link below for our group, and we'd be happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. And we broadcast this as a podcast on all of the podcasting platforms, as well as YouTube. So wherever you're watching this or seeing this, like, subscribe, all of those things. That way you can get notified with every session, because this can be a critical part of your own professional development. All right. I know you got a lot of value of this. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Sure, bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.